Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna of Russia was the only surviving daughter of Tsar Alexander II of Russia and Marie of Hesse and by Rhine. She would later marry Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom's second son, Prince Alfred, becoming the only Russian princess to marry into the British royal family. Maria was born on the 17th of October 1853 in the Alexander Palace. She was the sixth child and second daughter of Tsar Alexander II of Russia. She was born during the reign of her grandfather Nicholas I, who died in 1855. Maria's older sister Alexandra died before Maria was born, and Maria herself almost died from a bacterial throat infection at the age of 7. Maria grew up in luxury in large palaces and country estates owned by her family. The family mainly lived in the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. However, they also stayed in many other palaces. In the summer, they stayed at Peterhof, which contained farms, cottages, and pavilions on the Gulf of Finland. During autumn and winter time, the imperial family would live in Catherine Palace and Alexander Palace. Located on a pond in the park of Alexander Palace, Maria had her own little house on the children's island, which was off limits to adults and was used by the royal children as a playhouse. Maria's parents showered her with love and affection. She was considered her parents' favourite child, and she spent a lot of time with them. When she was bored of her studies, Maria would go to her father's office and often interrupt his meetings with his ministers. Maria was close to her brothers and would stand up for them when someone reprimanded them or gave out to them. Tsarina Marie had weak lungs and would often spend time in Germany and Europe during the winter time. She would take her 3 youngest children, Sergei, Paul, and Maria, with her. Because of this, Maria grew close to her brothers Sergei and Paul. Surrounded by 6 brothers, Maria grew up as a tomboy with an independent soul. She was genuine and honest and very stubborn. Maria was well educated and grew to be fluent in English, French, and German. In 1868, Maria met Prince Alfred of the United Kingdom while in Guggenheim in Germany. Prince Alfred was visiting his sister Princess Alice, who was married to Maria's first cousin, Prince Louis of Hesse and by Rhine. Alfred was a member of the British Navy, and they would not see each other again until 1871, when Alexander II and Tsarina Marie visited the Battenbergs in Guggenheim again. Maria accompanied them. Maria and Alfred felt great attraction to each other and spent their days walking and talking together. They wanted to marry, but Queen Victoria and the Tsar were against the match. Alexander II did not want to lose his beloved daughter and used his daughter's youth as an obstacle for the match. He suggested a period of 1 year before any decision would be made. Negotiations began in January 1873. Negotiations were taking place. Both Queen Victoria and Tsarina Marie looked for alternative partners for their children. But for Alfred and Maria, there was no one else they preferred nor loved. An Anglo-Russian dispute started over the Afghan border, and Queen Victoria's advisors suggested marriage between the British prince and Russian princess might ease tensions between the two countries by placing the monarchs of Britain and Russia in close proximity. In July 1873, Alfred proposed to Maria and she accepted him. Though both sets of parents were happy for their children, they were displeased at the match. Alexander granted his daughter a dowry of £100,000 and an annual allowance of £32,000. As well as this, he gave his daughter some of the best jewellery owned by the Romanovs, a trousseau worth £40,000, and a commissioned parure of diamonds and rubies as a wedding gift. For his new son-in-law, Alfred was made honorary chief of a Russian Guards regiment. The first crisis for the match occurred a week after the engagement. Queen Victoria insisted Maria come to Scotland to meet the Queen, but Alexander refused, and Marie suggested Cologne as a meeting place instead. Victoria made herself very unpopular in Russia when she refused to allow Alfred's brother, the Prince of Wales, to be made colonel of a Russian regiment, and demanded that an Anglican marriage service also be held alongside the Orthodox ceremony. The wedding took place in St. Petersburg on the 23rd of January 1874. Queen Victoria did not attend, but the Prince and Princess of Wales stood in for her. The newlyweds spent their wedding night at the Alexander Palace. Maria became the Duchess of Edinburgh on marriage. They arrived in England in March 1874. They were welcomed at Windsor by cheering crowds. They made their public entry into London society on the 12th of March and moved into Clarence House, which would become their London home. Maria had an Orthodox chapel installed in the home. They also had a country estate, Eastwell Park, in Kent. As a Grand Duchess and an Imperial Highness, Maria expected to take precedence over the British-born princesses and the Princess of Wales. Once she married Alfred, she was only allowed to use the style of Her Royal Highness, but the Tsar thought Maria should continue to go by Her Imperial Highness. There was also the issue of whether she should be referred to as a Grand Duchess of Russia or as the Duchess of Edinburgh. The orders of Queen Victoria, she would be known as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Edinburgh while in Britain, which irked Maria. In retaliation, Maria liked to show off her magnificent jewellery, which made the British princesses and the Queen jealous. In the order of precedence, Maria would be behind the Princess of Wales, which annoyed Maria. As a result of Maria not getting her way, Maria and the Queen's relationship turned sour. Maria and Alfred had 6 children together. Their first child, Alfred, was born on the 15th of October 1874, 9 months after the wedding. Their second child, Marie, was born just over a year later on the 29th of October 1875. Maria nursed the children herself, refusing to hire a wet nurse, which shocked many, including the Queen. Maria and Alfred and their children moved to Malta. Alfred was stationed there for his naval service. Maria gave birth to their third child, Victoria Melita, on the 25th of November 1876. Just under 2 years later, she would give birth to a third daughter, Alexandra, born on the 1st of September 1878. Their second son was stillborn. The couple's final child, Beatrice, was born on the 20th of April 1884. Maria had wished for more children, describing childbirth as the only heavenly moment for a woman. In 1877, Russia was at war with Turkey, and Queen Victoria sent Tsar Alexander a series of aggressive letters that almost led to war between Britain and Russia. Maria was shocked at the hostility of her mother-in-law towards her homeland and towards her father. Life in Britain was difficult for Maria. She was appalled by the air, the food, and the atmosphere. She found Windsor and Osborne boring and was disappointed by her new home. In her eyes, Britain would never compare or compete with the splendour of Russia. She also disliked her British in-laws, finding the Queen's company oppressive. She only cared for Prince Leopold and Princess Beatrice, the siblings-in-law closest in age to her. She became homesick for Russia and was happy to return whenever she could. Her masculine manners and imperious attitude made her unpopular in Britain, but Maria made it clear that she did not care about what other people thought. In February 1880, Maria was in Russia for her father's 25th anniversary, when radicals attempted to assassinate the Tsar and the entire imperial family. A bomb demolished the dining room and guard room. The Tsar was unharmed. Maria's mother died in June 1880, and her father was assassinated in 1881. Maria and Alfred were present at the coronation of Maria's brother Alexander III in May 1883. The following year, they also attended the wedding of Maria's younger brother Sergei to Alfred's niece Princess Elizabeth of Hesse and by Rhine in Russia. Alfred was heir to the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha because his uncle Ernest II had no children. Expecting to be the Duchess there, Maria had a palace built in Coburg for the family, known as Edinburgh Palace. The family settled in Malta for a time in 1886, when Alfred was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the British Mediterranean Fleet. Though life there was unexciting for Maria, she welcomed the new environment and became a fantastic hostess to the naval officers and their wives. Due to her husband's career, Maria was able to travel extensively and visited most European countries. In 1887, the Duke relinquished his command of the Mediterranean fleet and the family moved to Coburg. Her husband, occupied with his career in the Navy, was away most of the time, and responsibility of their children's upbringing fell on Maria's shoulders. She was a strict mother, but devoted to her children and wanted the best for them. Aside from common interests in music and their children, Maria and Alfred had very little in common and grew apart. In the mid-1880s, he became an alcoholic and was becoming increasingly unfaithful to her. Despite the resentment that grew in Maria towards her husband, she kept the marriage going, hiding her troubles from her children. Arguments over their children added to their marriage problems. Alfred hoped his daughter Marie would marry Prince George of Wales, the future George V, but Maria was determined that her children would avoid her mistake of marrying into the British royal family and put a stop to any talks of marriage. Ernest II died in 1893, and Alfred became the Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, with Maria as his Duchess. Maria enjoyed her new role and found the country to be charming, with many opportunities. Maria took to updating the badly furnished castles and charitable works. Maria believed in marrying her daughters off before they could think for themselves. Marie, their eldest daughter, married Ferdinand, Crown Prince of Romania, in 1893. He would later become the King of Romania. Victoria Melita married Ernest Louis, the Grand Duke of Hesse and by Rhine, in 1894. Alexandra was married to Prince Ernest of Hohenlohe-Langenburg, the future Prince of Hohenlohe-Langenburg. Their youngest daughter, Beatrice, married Alfonso of Spain, the third Duke of Galliera, in 1909. In November 1894, Maria's oldest brother, Alexander III, died, and his eldest son, Nicholas, succeeded as the new Tsar. He married Alfred's niece, Princess Alex of Hesse and by Rhine. Alfred and Maria stayed in Russia for the funeral of Alexander III and then the wedding of Nicholas II. Maria and her husband, in name only, celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary in January 1899. Their only son, Alfred, was gravely ill by this point. He had contracted syphilis from his womanizing. On the night of their wedding anniversary, young Alfred shot himself, but survived the initial shot. He would later die from his wounds on the 6th of February 1899. The Duke and Duchess were heartbroken at their son's death, and his death was the final blow to their marriage. Alfred blamed Maria for his son's death, as she had been responsible for his upbringing. The heir of the duchy fell to Alfred's nephew, Charles Edward, who was only a teenager and living in Britain. He moved to Germany to be educated there. Alfred was dying by this point from throat cancer, and he passed away on the 30th of July 1900 in his sleep. After his death, Maria stayed in England before returning to Germany. During her daughter's personal crises, she supported them. Relations with the new Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha were tense after Maria had worked so hard for the duchy and cleared its debts. However, relations improved when the Duke supported the marriage between Beatrice and Alfonso. After the outbreak of war in 1914, Maria was stuck in Germany and sided with Germany against Russia. She retired to Switzerland after Russophobia reached an all-time high in Coburg. During the Russian Revolution, many of Maria's Russian relatives were killed, including her brother Paul and nephew Tsar Nicholas II. Her large fortune, which was held in a trust in Russia, was lost, and she never saw a single penny of her British income. As a result, she had to sell much of her impressive jewellery collection. The war broke Maria. The Russia and Germany she knew and loved were gone. She died suddenly on the 25th of October 1920. She was buried in the ducal mausoleum in Coburg beside her husband and son.